and welcome back to another edition of the Ad Podcast. We've got a super fun guest for you guys today. Roy Sexton is the Chief Marketing Officer at Vedder Price, where he leads the firm's overall marketing strategy, brand positioning, business development initiatives across the legal sector, with more than 25 years of experience in marketing and strategic communications, including nearly 15 in focusing in the legal marketing world. Roy has helped shape campaigns, digital outreach, and organized storytelling that support growth and differentiation for global professional services companies. He's also served in leadership roles within the Legal Marketing Association, including as international president, and is recognized for his contributions to marketing leadership and inclusive leadership in the industry. Roy, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate your time.
Wow, you made me sound really important. I appreciate
it. Let's go.
And I should have noted, we just relaunched a revamped brand for Vedder, and we're now Vedder.
Let's go. Yeah, okay, the price is gone.
The last time someone references Vedder Price, yeah, we are
Let's
Vedder.
Let's go. Well, hey, I feel like a lot of partnership brands, for whatever reason, are kind of losing the long tail, and I think it's a modern look. I think it's probably smart.
You got it. That's exactly right.
Yeah, let's go. All right. So, you and I talked a little bit off camera about how fast, it's interesting. Like AI, a lot of people said, oh, AI is coming for, low skilled workers jobs.
Sure.
But one of the interesting areas of disruption right now is, the first major white collar group of people to get disrupted is actually the coders, right? So the guys that built all this shit, AI's coming for them first, which is a little bit serendipitous. But the other thing that I've noticed is that everybody thinks they're a lawyer now. They can send demand letters and they can send, legal sounding things at each other. And you and I just discussed a case where a lawyer was disbarred because he cited a case that didn't exist because he used ChatGPT to reference a case, and ChatGPT then hallucinated. So I'm really excited to talk to you about marketing the legal profession in the age of AI. But before we do that, let's get into your backstory a little bit.
Sure.
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What'd you study? How'd you get into marketing, and specifically into legal marketing?
Well, I have a career that is blessed by a lot of serendipity. So, I grew up in a small town in Northeast Indiana. I was an only child. My parents were very, very supportive and very, very much like, you will get the best grades you can possibly get in everything. So you can get a scholarship, so you can go to college. I mean, they had a path for me. And so, but we did not necessarily talk about careers. We just said, study what you love. So I was an English and theater major in college, got a master's in theater, realized at some point I needed to eat. So I went back to my undergrad and did alumni work. And while I was there, talked my way into a job at Deloitte Consulting in '99. I'm unclear why and how, but I worked there for a little bit in their healthcare practice, moved to Detroit, ended up working for a hospital system that had been a client there. And I wasn't really involved in marketing at all, other than I think I have a natural propensity for storytelling through the theater and, English degrees that I've had.
Were you at Deloitte during the Keith Ferrazzi days when he was the CMO?
No, I was there in '99, so I think it was different. Yeah.
Okay.
But so when I was in healthcare, I got hired into the strategic planning department. And in healthcare, strategic planning is a very specific, to quote Liam Neeson, a very specific and unique set of skills, which is about facility planning and throughput analysis and patient employee satisfaction. Again, things I'm like, how am I doing this? But I think my gift had been, I'm often the person at the table going, you're saying this and you're saying this, but you're not talking to each other. Let's do that. At some point during that time, my husband, who's the sensible one, who's an engineer and got reasonable degrees, he said, go get your MBA. So I got my MBA. And when I got that, that's when the health system said, you're probably ready to go. What can we do? And I said, well, marketing's part of the same division. And I feel like they're not really being very strategic or focused in terms of what they were doing. So that's when in '07, I got involved in marketing. And then after 5 years of that, I'm a bit of a masochist. I just said, well, let me see what else is out there. And I threw my resume out, got hired by a mortgage foreclosure firm, probably a special place in hell for me. I did that for 6 years, but I loved it. Got involved with the Legal Marketing Association, as you referenced. And I found, regardless of the circumstances, and we'll get into the unique moment we're in right now, there are always going to be challenges facing any industry that is like healthcare or legal. You're product are the people. In the healthcare's case, the doctors, the
Mm.
nurses, the clinicians. In legal, it's the attorneys. There's kind of a guild aspect to it, but there's also a business aspect to it. And so you always have that tension going on regardless. And there's always going to be somebody who's out there trying to do it bigger, better, faster. But at the end of the day, finding that differentiator to say my people and my unique mix of people is going to be different than any other tool that you're going to have in your arsenal, and helping the people get out of their own way and tell that story. So, I like working with lawyers because there is this magic moment. They often come to me knowing my work better than I do until we have a conversation and they realize I do have some background, I do have some credibility. And then when you see that light bulb go off and they're like, oh, I could approach this differently. I can get my name out there. I can get my story out there. I can connect with clients and prospects in a way I wasn't able to do on my own through my support. And my ego satiated in so many different ways. You ran through my biography, so I'm good. I like to see that happen and step back and go, yeah, fly. You got this. What's the tool that works for you as an attorney? Podcasting, thought leadership, social media. It's going to be different for each attorney. It's going to be different for their practice, different for their client set. And I think that's kind of a fun riddle to solve. So,
I love it. So tell me a little bit about Vedder. I'm somewhat familiar with the big law firms
yeah,
because I actually made some movies about famous court cases when I was in my
nice.
20s. Yeah, I was a part of a team of 5 people who financed a movie about the Sacco and Vanzetti case. And
What was the
and the
movie? I'm a big movie nut.
yeah, it was called No God, No Master, was the Sacco
Okay.
and Vanzetti one.
Okay.
It was about the birth of the FBI. A guy named Bill Flynn started the FBI.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and he infiltrated, apparently, or some people say that he infiltrated the communist slash anarchist network that was responsible for the third largest terrorist attack on U.S. history that a lot of people don't remember, which is the
Whoa.
bombing of the J.P. Morgan building in 1910.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you go to that building in New York, you can still see the
I see.
pockmarks in the New York Stock Exchange. But
Wild.
yeah, so, and it's about the Sacco and Vanzetti case. So, and then we made a movie a few years prior about the Scottsboro Boys, the famous civil
Oh,
rights case. And we had 900 attorneys who are our investors. So I
that's awesome.
called on a lot of bigger firms. But
Did you ever, I'm just
mhm.
going to go down a
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
let's
Did
go.
you ever hear of the musical, The Scottsboro Boys,
No,
Candor and Ebb?
when
Candor and
was
Ebb,
that?
who they did Chicago and
Okay,
Cabaret, and
yeah,
it's so good. I never saw it live, but they
okay,
did a musical. It was the last thing they did before one of them passed away. I can't remember which one. You should check it out. The music is, if you know that story, which you clearly do,
yeah,
what they do with it and how they tell the story through song, it breaks your heart. And it didn't do it's a tough subject, right? So to do
yeah,
it
of
as a
course.
musical, I don't think it did very well. I was nominated for some Tonys. I think it lasted like 6 months. They don't tour it. I mean, I think it's just too hard of a piece for people to kind of get their arms around. But you definitely find that score and listen to it and let me know what you think, because
I will check that
it's
out
one of
for
my
sure.
favorite Broadway. I'm a theater guy. It's one of my favorite
Okay.
Broadway scores of the last 25 years. It is glorious. So
Well, I will check that out.
yeah.
Thank you very much for the
Anyway,
recommendation.
what were we talking
Yeah.
about?
So tell me about Vedder and
Oh
what
yes.
is what are they a specialty shop? Like, how do you position Vedder
Yeah.
generally in the
So
market?
I am very grateful for all of the engagements I've had. So what I say, I don't say to take away from any other firm or any other place I've worked. These are some of the smartest, sharpest attorneys I've ever had the benefit of working with. And I'm not
Wow.
saying that as the marketing guy, like, have I got a bridge for you? I really, it reminds me of the time I was at Deloitte, which was the other time in my life where I'm like, boy, I'm working with people who now have gone on to, one friend of mine who has a restaurant with Tom Colicchio from Deloitte, another is doing voiceover work. I mean, they went on and did very interesting things. So I feel like I'm in that kind of moment again with people. We have about 400 professionals, 375 attorneys, but then you include the paralegals and others who are 400. We have 9 offices in all of the major economic centers of the United States, as well as London and Singapore. And when I was coming here and thinking about it, a friend of mine who was at one of the AmLaw like 5 firms, I said, I don't know. I'm at this very large firm. This is going to be a smaller firm, but a step up and roll to get to chief marketing officer. Had to relocate from Detroit to Chicago. And she goes, the reputation of this firm that you're going to, Vedder, is remarkable. They are the firm
Mm.
other firms go to when it comes
Wow.
particularly for, finance and transactions, global transportation, labor and employment, corporate. Those are our big heavy hitting areas. We have a lot of others: immigration, with some environmental, some other things, intellectual property that kind of bake under that. But it really is a powerhouse when it comes to those aspects of the law. We also have government investigations, which is a distinguishing feature. So I've been there a year now, and getting to relaunch the brand and focus all of that in a really clear message. So we launched Monday, got a lot of great feedback, got some coverage. Law 360 covered it, a few others. The name change, obviously, going to Vedder intrigues people, like why? And we did our market studies, we looked at it. I sometimes tell the story. Walt Disney was building Disneyland, and there was a flower bed between Main Street and Tomorrowland. And people kept walking through the flower bed. And the gardener said, "Walt, we need a fence." And he goes, "No, we need a sidewalk there." So sometimes when you're
Mm.
dealing with your naming, it's like everybody's calling you Vedder. They're not calling you Vedder Price. Let's go with that. And then also when you get that into the iconography and what you can really punch with, Vedder, again, the theater guy in me, Vedder. It's a, we can't. It's a good name, right?
Makes me
And
think
then
of
also,
like Darth Vader is going to come out
right,
and
I mean, it's
fight
like
your court case
we're
for you.
strong. And we supplemented that with a tagline, "Navigate with confidence," which
Mm.
clearly articulates these are the people you want on your side when you're navigating some difficult business decisions or working through some potential growth opportunities for your business. So, and then the look, the feel, all the stuff that gets people excited. But for me, the brand launch sometimes is the least interesting part in a firm, because that's the day everyone tells me they don't like their pictures. I'm more interested in, what can we do with this? Do people see themselves in the brand? Can I use it to tell stories? So we've shifted the way we're using language. It's much punchier. We're using video more aggressively. We're just bringing in. Are we setting the world on fire from a marketing perspective? Maybe not, but from a legal perspective, making sure we're in alignment with what the culture actually is versus how they were representing themselves in the past. That's exciting for me, and how we can use that. So,
Yeah, I love it. Well, even hearkening back to your days at Deloitte, I think the professional services brands of older years, and some of it, I suppose, was ego to make sure
yeah,
that all the name partners got, their name on the wall. And I remember
right,
in the advertising world where I come from, you would have an agency that had 5 names on the door and it
right.
really became a mouthful, right? So I think, the modern brand, even in a professional services industry, even if it is a partnership, tightening it down to one name, I think is probably the right move. And I think that was smart of you guys.
And it is full
Um,
circle. I wasn't part of this
mhm,
decision, obviously, but I was at Deloitte when they were grappling with, are we Deloitte Touche? Are we Deloitte Touche Rosh Tomatsu? I mean, they had all that, and they
mhm.
ended up just going Deloitte, period,
Yeah,
literally.
probably a
Yeah,
smart move. I
yeah,
think if you think about in hindsight how well they've
mhm,
done in kind of transforming from an audit and accounting and consulting
correct,
firm now to like business transformation,
correct.
and I think that was smart.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about some. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the legal profession at large as we were talking about, and then I want to get into some specifics of how you are helping your 375 attorneys kind of power the marketing engine of the firm. Because, like you said, the legal profession is a people business, and it
Mhm.
relies on the personalities, skill sets, resumes, and networks of the partners and of the lawyers. So I want to get into that and how
Well said.
you as the brand steward kind of push those into different directions and areas. But first, let's talk about the law in general as a industry and as a service. So I am just doing this from the outside looking in. But the feel that I have right now and what I see in AI and what I see, like just talking to colleagues and stuff, like when I was young in my 20s, my 30s, I would have never considered looking at a contract, talking to somebody about a deal,
Mhm.
without having a lawyer at least take a look at it.
Yep.
I feel like in the age of AI now, everybody thinks they're a legal expert. Everybody thinks they can take their contract and just dump
Everybody
it in.
thinks. Yeah,
Thinks
everybody thinks that.
exactly, dumps it into Chat
Mhm.
GBT. They think they can, write demand letters with Chat GBT and just send it and CC a fake
Yeah,
attorney. And we talked about the lawyer who got in trouble for citing case law
yeah.
that didn't exist. So where do you think, the legal profession is as a brand, essentially, in the age of AI, where everybody kind of thinks that they're an expert now?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. We had a management retreat last week and we talked about this openly and how the firm is leaning into intentionality, thoughtfully integrating tools to maintain who we are and what we do, but in a more efficient, expedited fashion. And then what does that mean in terms of creating capacity for people who might have been doing work that now can be replaced with AI, but can do the kind of work to more thought leadership kind of work, more differentiated kind of work. So I think the firms that embrace and understand the opportunity here are going to be far better positioned.
Mm.
I mean, again, I have the lenses I have, theater and healthcare in this, so God help you. We didn't even get into comic books and other things that influenced me, but we certainly saw this in healthcare for the better part of 25 years. The minute people had WebMD, although people don't talk about it anymore, Google. My husband just had a procedure yesterday and he got direction from his pharmacist and he goes, "Oh," and I said, "Well, Google it." I mean, I even said that. So the fact that we can triangulate using various tools, it's not the worst thing in the world. But I think at the end of the day, we also have to have the acceptance and knowledge. If you're a business leader, you're not a lawyer. If you're a
Mhm.
lawyer, you're not a marketer. If you're a marketer, you're not whatever. I mean, you keep going down this path. Know where you are and what you can and can't do. So if you need to use the tools to understand what your options are, but understand there are regulations for a reason to keep you safe and protected. So there are
Mhm.
kind of a couple things going on in your question. One of which is don't be an armchair attorney. And I'm not giving you legal advice because I can't. But for your own sanity and safety, don't be a don't do that. Now, there could be a couple reasons, and as a marketer, how do you unpack why someone might do that?
Mhm.
They don't wanna spend the money on it. Well, I can't help you with that. Or they don't have the money to spend on legal counsel. I can't help you with that. But are they doing it because they want immediacy? Are they doing it because they don't want if-then statements from an attorney? They want clarity. So those are things as marketers we can coach the attorneys to say people are turning to these other tools because you're not responding quickly enough or because they feel like they're not getting clarity from what you're doing. So again, I'm speaking not about Vedder, but more broadly,
Yeah.
reverse engineer again the sidewalk versus the flower bed. Why are people doing this? And don't be so frightened of it. I read a book once. You can see I read lots of books. They're behind me. But,
Yep.
I in my MBA program, we read The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. You read a lot of this stuff. I hate these Who Moved My Cheese and all these kind of books. But that one laid me flat because it was so simple. It was like every era, there's something. There's there's the car that the people who made horse and buggies thought, well, I'm going to make my horse and buggy better. No, why don't you be Fisher and shift to creating bodies for cars, not better ways to hoof horses? We had it with the hula hoop and comic books that were going to destroy children and rocket ships and social media was going to be the end of time. That's still debatable. Television, everything is something that's ending something that came before, but smart folks adapt to that technology and bring it in. Now, the other part of your question was people who are using this tool, whether you're a lawyer, I've used it to write keynotes, I've used it to write articles. Just do like you would anything else. We were taught, right? I mean, I'm that era that had a card catalog. So when you wrote a thesis or whatever, a term paper, you had to cite all your sources and you had to make sure they were valid. And you made sure you shared your outline and everything with the teacher. Those principles still apply. So if I'm writing an article and I've gotten it done a lot more quickly using ChatGPT, it's still on me to read the damn thing I wrote.
Mhm.
Is it reflective of what I would say? Check the sources. Are they accurate? You know, I
Yeah.
that to me, that's basic common sense. And again, I can't speak as a lawyer because I'm not one, but I can speak as a human being who's on either the creative end or the receiving end to say, did you do your due diligence around whatever it is? And my frustration with any of these things, and I'm not shooting the messenger here, but a few years ago it was Internet of Things, and it was blockchain, and it was we do this every couple of years, and we're like, but AI's been with us for 20, 25 years. It's been in our iPhones. It's been in most of the
Yeah, it
apps
used to be
we use.
called machine learning.
Now we can actually get into it. Now we can actually ask it to do things. We're not relying on Steve Jobs to ask it to do something on our behalf, and it's set to a limited number of tasks. And how do I get this place and remind me to order some milk? We actually are under the hood of it, or think we are. And so it's created this buzz that I think is helpful because people will reinvent and rethink. But I also think it's a bit misleading because the same principles and common sense applies now as it always has. And again, maybe I'm showing my age, but it's like, slow down. Yes, it's making things quicker for you. But if you're a lawyer, you are being paid for your discernment. And if you're not bringing that to this, then it goes back to your question. Why doesn't someone just create their own contracts on, I mean, think about it, folks. So,
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I'm thinking about one of the big changes that are happening in the advertising and marketing world, especially around SEO, is with this idea of AEO, is that 60% of searches now don't end with a click.
No.
So you're basically taking what used to be the research phase of the internet browsing behavior, where somebody would click through and read an article, and then you would cookie them and follow them around the internet. It's kind of taking that part out of it.
Right.
That time normally spent researching is happening inside of chatbots.
Right.
But then when people come to your website, they're ready to transact. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to do as much education. Really, the goal is to get them to where they can buy your service as fast as possible, is the new value proposition of a website.
And honestly, it's getting us closer to how all of these things should have been used in the beginning. And I think marketers, again, they get bent out of shape because now I'm a different kind of law. Now, if I were the mesothelioma attorneys or the, car accident attorneys, the billboard attorneys, they do need to worry about how they were ranked in Google. And, and I've had attorneys in prior firms that call me and like, why am I not coming up first in Google? And I'm like, if your corporate clients are picking you because you came up in Google, we have a bigger problem. I've always been more interested in, let's not buy football tickets for people. Let's not let's talk about the contents of your brain and getting them into the world. So when people have a problem, you're the person they think of first. So from my perspective, what the generative engine piece is doing so beautifully and in an exciting way. And I feel like I kind of stumbled into this like Forrest Gump. It's taking all that content that for years for different organizations, and now this one, I've been prolifically like, get this out on social media, write these articles, get these media hits. And I get every firm I've been in, I get some pushback. Oh, social media, why do I need to be on that? Oh, why do I need to write articles? I'm not going to get anything from that. Probably not immediately, but you're creating a footprint for yourself of expertise. So, and I didn't know what was coming, but now I had somebody explain it to me like I was a dummy, and I'm like, oh, I feel good about this. It's like the more stuff you've put out there that's accurate, thoughtful, directional, the more the search engines are going to find that and bring it up and highlight it. Now, the other part that I want to caution people, they want to apply the Google paradigm to ChatGPT. I've heard people say this before. Well, if I'm cited, then they're going to click the citation. They're going to, no, think about how you yourself use it. I don't know why people use things one way, and then when they're selling for somebody else, they completely forget that. I check the citation to make sure it's not bogus. I don't check the citation to go, I want to call that person and follow them on Instagram. No. But the more of that citation you're having happen, the more prominent you are. And again, think about movie stars, think about authors, it's these people who have been so ubiquitous over time that then they are the first people think of. And that's how mass market advertising used to work. It's just different day, different dollar, different channel, just adapt to it. And again, the same principle applies. You want to be the top person people think of when they have that issue. Now, the way to do that is get enough content out there. And the other thing I would say to attorneys is please focus. Most of the attorneys I've worked with prior to this firm is supremely focused. It is a gift. But I've worked with many other firms that were like, well, let's put this page up on the website. Well, do we do that? Well, we do, but we want the business. Okay.
Yeah, they're trying to
Focus.
be all things to
Right.
everybody,
If
and
you're
they're
all
not
things to all
accreting
people, you're nothing to
expertise.
no one. And
Yep.
this is the moment. This is the moment. Again, theater stuff. You the more focused you are. That's why I love working at this firm. They know exactly who they are and what they do. And this is the moment where that is going to serve you well. If you try to be
Yeah.
everything to all people, you're not going to be differentiated in these multiple channels that now exist. But the more focused, laser focused you are, the more the right people who want to hire you for the right things are going to find you.
Yeah, I
That's
love
my
that.
belief.
I wonder if the same thing that's happening with kind of AEO, people doing research inside of chatbots, if people are kind of armchair attorneying, maybe they're going to get themselves into trouble faster and then have to actually seek legal help because
Well,
they
right. I mean,
sent an email they should have or generated a
I don't
contract that they
I don't want
should
to
have.
sound mercenary, but it opens up a new set of opportunities for litigators that are different. So nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, you might lose something on one end, but you might pick up, more complex work. This is my healthcare background. It's the equivalent of feeding a bunch of cheeseburgers to somebody and going, well, you had a heart attack. We're going to pay more for that. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say, but I remember that from my healthcare days where it was like, we make more money from open heart surgery. I'm like, but shouldn't we be preventing this? So
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I think you've alleviated my fear that, the legal profession is by any means in any kind of
well,
trouble. So
and hopefully I'm not, I don't want to be that footnote in the world is flat 2.0 where it's
yeah,
like, and I remember very clearly they said, Kodak went out of business because they thought they were selling film, not memories. The music industry nearly went out of business because they forgot they were selling the experience, not plastic discs. I hope
smart.
I'm not rationalizing something away. I am I implore people to not stick their head in the sand, but to learn much as they had to learn these other tools that have come down. And legal has always been slow to adopt to things like social media and other things for whatever reason. It's the risk of it. But here's an opportunity before someone else disrupts your path. Embrace and understand what it means. And like anything, you're there to mitigate risk on behalf of your clients. So you have to understand and know how these things work before they do. So then you can articulate to them, here's where it's beneficial, here's where it's not. Here's where we're seeding some market because this is done more effectively, but you're never going to be able to replace this. And I think the firms that are able to have that differentiating exercise are going to be much better off. So
Love it. All right, let's talk about some tactical stuff on the marketing of a law firm and how you leverage your 375 geniuses and pull the insights out of their brain and get them out into the world. So you
it's not
talked about
easy. They're busy. They're
they're
busy,
busy.
and they're like, I don't have time for this, so
Exactly. Well, busy people, but I think that's part of the magic, right? Is
right.
trying to figure out how to incentivize them and how to show
Mhm.
them that it works. And when they have that aha moment, like you said,
Yeah.
can be interesting. So, you talked about differentiation, and I think that's always been important in the professional services arena, whether you're a commercial real estate executive, an attorney, a CPA. Anytime you have a speciality that is an inch wide and a mile deep, the
Yeah.
the more relevant you become to your core audience, and the more you become a thought leader or a
Mhm.
specialist, and then you become a go-to or one of a list of a smaller group of go-tos. Versus if somebody thinks about something general, they can just go to a larger group of
Yeah.
people, and there isn't that level of differentiation. So when you are working with attorneys that haven't already figured that out, how do you kind of help coach them into that? And what are some of the first steps that they can do to start to build that personal brand and that differentiation?
Yeah, I think, and let me step back a little bit because it's sort of, in my case, parallels what it's like to be a new person in a new organization because you're an unproven entity, and especially with lawyers, they want to make sure you're not going to do damage. Quite frankly,
Hmm.
do
Yeah,
you know what you're doing? You might have bona fides, you might have been the legal marketing association president, whatever, but you're new to us, so we're different.
you got to earn trust.
Yeah, and so for me, before I can even get to the point where I can help them feel very comfortable, putting their names out there. I have to earn my credibility and stripes with them. And so early on, I, walk the halls, meet with them, find out what sets them apart. I, look at my background. I have 1,000 items and things. Attorneys are the same way. So I connect with them on a personal level. I see things that are of depth personally. And then I start to ask them, what have been pain points for you? What are things that you feel like the world doesn't know about you, you wish they did? Then I figure out, how can I work with the willing? How can I leverage media relations? How can I leverage things that they've already wanted to do that they feel they don't have time for, whether it's writing articles, things of that nature, and bringing more attention to those efforts. And I don't try to be all things to all people. I don't try to boil the ocean with every single attorney. I work with the ones who seem to lean into it already. And then as I have successes with them, you recirculate that. That's how I use social media as well. I'm really obnoxious about it. And one of the attorneys last week commented, "You really do a nice job, Roy, connecting and celebrating all of us when we've done something." They see it. So anytime we post something on LinkedIn, I see a lot of, and I don't, not saying how people should or shouldn't be, but especially if you're the chief marketing officer, it buffaloes me that you are not actively resharing and exemplifying for the people in your firm, this is what you should do. And I see it over and over. I don't know if they're too cool for school. They don't want to seem too eager. They don't want to seem salesy. I don't know what it is. But every time we post something on our LinkedIn, I reshare it and I tag the attorney. And more often than not, as twee as this sounds, I say, thank you. Thank you, Dylan, for writing this article. Right there, right on LinkedIn. Now, am I helping with the algorithm? Am I helping people get? I don't care. Am I posting too much? I don't care. I'm connecting to the human being, because that's the other part of attorneys. They're kind of sweet natured. They're going to hate that I said that, but they're deep down, everybody. Oprah has this little clip. Sorry, getting the Robin Williams part of my personality now.
Let's go.
She has this clip where she's talking about different people, and and how the need is. She rattles off a bunch of names. She goes, Beyonce, even Beyonce, being so Beyonce, comes off stage and says to me, "Was that okay?"
Yep.
We all want just the moment of going, I see that you wrote an article and that was appreciated. And when I see them in the hallway, I go, I see that you share a lot of our stuff. I appreciate that. Like, I actively, and it probably, people go, you're too focused on social media. But to me, that's the crack that I can start to kind of avail myself of, because that's where people are intrigued enough, but frightened and not sure. So I'm like, I feel comfortable in that space. And the only child introvert in me feels really comfortable here. Don't throw me in a cocktail party. Don't send me to a football game. But social media, where I can sit there in my pajamas and see what everybody's done, who has shared, how they've done it, and acknowledge and recognize, that earns me the stripes that over time, people are like, he saw what I did. He acknowledged it. And I start to see them do that. And because that's, at the end of the day, it's not about me sharing it. It's about attorney to attorney, and not just sharing it on social media, getting comfortable going, hey, client, this article came out. I want you to know about it. We can have all the AI in the world. We can have all the CRMs in the world. We can have all the processes in the world. We can talk cross-selling till we're blue in the face. But the only time it really matters in a law firm is when someone genuinely and authentically says, here's something cool my colleague did, and you as my client should know about it. I can't force that to happen, but I can model it. I can create a sense of intellectual curiosity. Because the other thing I've noticed in every firm I've been, it's not ego. They're just so busy in their space they're in. They never bother to pay attention to what else is happening across the firm, which is why in a firm, every firm, you'll see these emails. Pardon the interruption. Do we have anybody that does X? And I'm always sitting there, did you even go on the website? Did you even but don't get mad. They're asking. So get the information out there. So, there's also the opportunity inside to do newsletters, engagement, and say, here's all the media hits we had. The other thing I've noticed when I start firms is people say, marketing's not getting our name out there. Well, I set up a Google alert and I realize we're getting lots of hits, and I just need to recirculate it to everybody and go, here's. So I don't know that was quite the answer to your question.
No, it's great.
That's, at least in a law firm, at least with my personality, that's how I've gotten, and it's worked now 4 times in a row. I'm seeing it now happen here, where we just launched this video announcing our brand. What I find about the really talented people like I have at Vedder, they're very, very humble. they don't want to be out there. But we had
Mm,
105 people, no, I think 111 now have shared that video, which is, I think, a record for us. I
wow,
know
that's
that
amazing.
for Nike, that sounds like nothing, but for us, out of 400 people to have 111 people all share the video with some
Yeah, it's close
enthusiasm.
to 25%, share rate
Right. I'll
across an
take that.
organization. I mean,
I'll take that.
imagine if a big company had those kind of
Yeah.
numbers, right?
I'll take that.
No, I think I really appreciated your statement there, because what it really breaks down to is you have to build a culture of sharing. You have to build a culture of people understanding why the stuff is important. And the other thing is you're butting up against societal pressures to like be humble and don't brag about
Mhm.
yourself, let somebody else brag about you. And you know but the best people just keep their heads down and do their thing, and
Yeah.
their work kind of gets put out there organically. And I think you gotta build those muscles. And
Right.
I love the idea that that's your role as the CMO, is to cultivate that culture starting with
Yeah.
your own behavior. So I think that was actually really great. So all right. What's also interesting is that you knew down to the number how many people shared that brand video. Do you have any kind of software or tools? Like, do you have any way of kind of measuring, like, okay, you launch a new video
Yeah.
and 171 people have shared it. Do you have a way of kind of tracking that? Do you have a
Yeah.
way of distributing content and distributing marketing
Yeah.
assets to your team? Are you able to then see, like, oh, well, 175 people shared it, and that generated 500,000
Yeah.
impressions on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
20,000 video views and
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Be
So
curious kind of on the data behind that.
we do, and I don't wanna seem like I'm being a shill for any particular product, but we use Sprout. I also know
Oh,
that
yeah.
sometimes
Sprout's
people are like,
great.
"What do people use?" So we use Sprout. I used that in my
Yep.
prior organization as well. And I also am smart enough on the balance to get out of the way of my team. So I have a wonderful person that came over from association management. She's been managing our social media. She's doing great. So she uses Sprout for all the scheduling. She will give a report out monthly to our teams. This is what's working, what's not. I think what we haven't done much yet is that internal reporting to the rest of the firm. Often it's like crickets, because you share those numbers with attorneys, and they're like, I don't know what this means. I don't care. But at least for the team to think about, this is working, this is not. This is the kind so they can start to give coaching and direction to the attorneys on what kind of material works and what doesn't work. We have our Google Analytics. I mean, we have all the pieces that are kind of baseline to understand what traffic is coming in. We use Deal Cloud for our CRM to kind of understand who's consuming content. I've got a wonderful MarTech manager who's been building out dashboards so we can start to correlate what's happening with our events, what's happening with our consumption, what's happening, so we can see that pipeline management. Again, nothing revolutionary, but just making sure all those pieces are lined up. But to your point about me, I don't, maybe this is advice, maybe this is peril. I don't wait for my team to give me the report that came through Sprout.
Mm.
If I'm interested, and I often am, I go to our social media every night and I look, and it's real easy. You go, how many reposts? And you open that up and you go, wow, there were 6 of them. And I see who those people were. And if it's an attorney and they've made a comment, which means I can leave a comment in theirs, I go, thank you for sharing this. I mean, I take the time to do that. And it's not a lot of time. I mean, it's 5-10 minutes a day to go in and just see. And for me, and again, maybe showing my age, LinkedIn is a great canary in the coal mine for me to see. And I don't have to wait for anybody on my team to give me a report. But when they do give me the report, I'm not surprised. They've quantified it far more sophisticated than I am. I know 111 people have shared it. I don't know the reach yet. I don't know, some of the other more interesting, how people long they stayed with the video. I know that we've got that metric as well. I don't know any of that yet, but I know, shit, a lot of people shared it. That means they liked it. No one's complaining. And I want to acknowledge the people that did it in real time. My mom always said this tell people what they mean to you in the moment will mean something to them. So I bring that into my work, and I'm and CMOs of other organizations would probably say, Roy, you're too in the weeds. You need to be up here. You need to be a little aloof. You need to be reserved and distant. I'm not made that way. So I'd rather be in there and go, that is cool. Thank you. I appreciate it, and maybe it makes people think I'm crazy. I don't, but it's working so far.
I love it. So, what about content distribution and kind of getting things out to people? Have you guys built a good system for that? Because I
Yeah,
imagine, you could send an email, there could be a
yeah,
Slack group, there could be
yeah,
something more, official where it makes it easy for people to grab assets. And,
yeah.
the other thing that I think about in regards to like, how do you share thought leadership, right? Like, there different people have different skill sets.
Mhm.
Some people love to write. I like to talk, so I podcast. I
Exactly,
don't write anything because
exactly.
I can talk, and then I can have the minute we hop off this, I'm going to send you 5 AI generated clips, and
Yep,
like those are so. Some people like to talk on video. Some people like to communicate through infographics and charts.
right.
How do you take a brand asset but then make it something that the firm and the different lawyers who like to communicate in different ways can
Mhm.
kind of turn it into their own point of view and their own way that they like to
Yeah.
communicate, either through social or through other channels?
So I think there are 3 aspects to what you're saying, one of which is, you're talking about sort of on the kind of post-production side of it, which sometimes in a lot of teams, you just don't have the bandwidth to do all the different kinds of things you might like with a piece of content. I wish we had the team and time to do more like you're talking about. This is your podcast, so you're able to play and do some of those things. Sometimes we're like, "We got that done. Here's a clip. Next, we're on to the next thing."
Hmm.
So that's point 1, which I think teams need to start building that part into their project plan. They focus on the scheduling, the getting it announced, the getting it done, and then maybe a quick if you missed it. But we never most every firm I've worked at, they really don't do as much to mine more out of the content. And much of it's evergreen. Marvel doesn't run one Avengers ad and then they're done with it. They run that stuff, the wheels off it. So that's kind of one aspect. But I think where you can, using the bandwidth you have if you're in legal, at the front end, build enough boats and don't force every attorney to use every single one. So if you've got
Mm.
writers, let them lean into writing if that's where they're comfortable. If you've got people who are like you, want a podcast, create that vehicle for them. If they're video people, if they're the kind of people who are so busy they just want to do a 5-minute interview with the media, and then you can turn. So, and you're not forcing every attorney to use all of those things, but you're saying here are the options. They're going to lean into the one that is most comfortable for them. And then the third aspect of this is your distribution network. So I'm always a big fan of making sure you've got a mechanism to do that. So we have our CRM, we've got our email list, we've got our distribution channels that way. We also make sure all the attorneys know. A lot of firms don't do this because they're like, well, we don't have time to send that back to the attorneys. Well, you should. So you send it out from the marketing email address. That's great. However, that email getting forwarded by the attorney to their client with a personal note is still going to mean more than it coming from marketing, and there's no problem with it getting sent twice. And then have a syndication network. We use JD Supra. They push it out to their subscriber base and to their newsletters. And then we also get it out on our social media, tag the attorneys, make sure it goes that way. And then it's on our website to make sure it's coming up in search. So at least you have several vehicles where you're placing, and I'm focusing more on written content because I'm balanced 80-90% of what a firm is putting out are alerts, and getting them to write those, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Write those alerts in a way that the end user will understand, not other lawyers. Lawyers like to put the
Mm.
most important thing at the very end. They're building the case, you know? And most of us are like, "What what's the most," yeah, that's at the end, like, invert that pyramid. And so and we've been doing this on our website and every launch is rewriting these things to say, put the most important. I'm sorry, attorneys, if they care, they'll read the rest of it. And I know you worry, you want them to know all this other stuff, but give them the most important thing up front, because that's what the engines are going to search for. That's what people are going to glance for. Bold that, format it in such a way. So you also sometimes have to focus on the way the content is framed by the attorneys, because they will write in such a way that is not always accessible. And sometimes they'll let you touch it, sometimes they won't. You just have to pick your battles.
Yeah, well, you also hit on another important component of AEO, which is token utilization, right?
Yes.
So now the the chatbots actually prefer short articles that get straight to the point, that have brevity,
Mhm.
because it costs them less money than to
Right.
scan something that's
Right.
long. So
Yeah.
everything in the AI world comes down to energy
Yeah.
usage right
Yeah.
now, which is kind of a
Right.
strange thing.
So,
But
and as frustrating that is, that it we and I'm I have no ego in this. If I just told the attorneys 3 years ago, "You write too long, no one's gonna read all this, just get to the point. Who do you think you are? You don't know."
Mhm.
Now I can say, "Well, you heard about AI, you know that it's important. If you want the little robots out there to know you exist, do this." And then they're more likely to go, I'll say it nicer than that, but they're like, "Oh, okay. I'll listen
Yeah,
to you." So,
I love it.
take
I
the
love
moment.
it. So, as you embark into this new Vedder brand, how do you also balance tradition and history, and kind of weave, where you guys came from into your marketing and storytelling?
This is gonna sound like such a flippant answer. You don't need to worry about that. They're gonna remind you of the tradition and the way things were, and but I think the more a grown up answer to that is listen to that. I think a lot
Mhm.
of marketers, and I made this mistake my first firm. I went in and I wrote a big marketing plan and I did all this and reinvented and did a new brochure. All this stuff was 15 years ago. Nobody cared because I hadn't
Mhm.
paused long enough to actually learn who they were or what mattered or really understand, more importantly, what their clients understood. And marketers are one of two ways in legal. Either they're hiding under the broom closet because they don't want to upset anybody, or they're like, I know better than the rest of them. And I'm like, no, you don't. And often, quite frankly, when they do say they know their clients really well, they do. Listen to them, but validate. Find out from the clients what's important to them. And often the difference is not so much in the quality, the tradition. The clients and the attorneys are aligned on that. It's the delivery mechanism. That's where the attorneys get really beholden to. My clients love coming to this holiday party. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go to that holiday party. I'm going to watch people walk in. And when they look at their watches and lean over to their partner and say, how long do we have to be here? No, they don't really want to come to that. They want to be with you. They want to connect with you, but they want to connect with you on the things that are important to them. So get from the clients the way they want to receive that tradition, the way they want to receive that information, and help the attorneys work more efficiently. But I think marketers are smart to look at what came before. You're building on, unless, and it's rare, unless you're going into let's think about, was it Arthur Anderson? Some of those where you really had a brand that was problematic and then there was a switch over and you're doing a true rebrand where you want people to kind of distance from the past. But how often do you have to deal with that as marketers? Very rarely. So you really do want to embrace and honor the tradition, but don't let it be like a boat anchor around your neck. No one, again, that first firm, they had this brochure, and I think my instinct was right. I think my execution was faulty. They had a brochure that was like 40 pages. It was about the history of this firm that had done foreclosure since 1984. I'm like, nobody cares about that. And so I distilled the message down to what currently they did that set them apart while honoring what came before. I I focused on the updating their delivery mechanism, which I didn't need to. I should have focused simply on the message and get everybody on board with that, which I didn't do at that time. That was a rookie mistake. And I think if I'd gotten them more on board with the message, what I handed out, whether it was a brochure or website, it didn't matter. But
Yeah. You brought up something else, kind of how clients engage with all this stuff, whether it's, real events like the Christmas party, or, symposiums or talks that you guys are putting on, up to the various channels that you guys are involved in thought leadership, whether that's podcasting, video, or blogging, or writing. How do you empower and teach your attorney to use those content opportunities to invite their clients in, either for retention or to generate new business by inviting in prospects to co-author and
yeah,
co-create?
again, I think to talk about it broadly, you're going to get crickets. But where you
Mm,
can find specific examples and people who are willing to partner with you and or data that supports your case, that's where you can make that argument. So, not speaking generally, but specifically, a prior firm, height of the pandemic, we were kind of getting a lot of our podcast offerings off the ground because what else were we going to do? And one of the attorneys was in bankruptcy space, that kind of related field. And she was smart enough to work with us, but to make it her own and identify those people that she wanted to develop relationships with or who had their own strong following. So as she was building out her guest list for that, she was also thinking in a long game of who's going to have a following that's going to complement mine, and or who will feel like this is a gift that I'm giving them to be interviewed. So she had a strategy, which I think most attorneys don't have that going at that point. They're just like, I'm going to do a podcast and everybody's going to love me. There are so damn many podcasts, So use that corner of the world to connect with the 7 or 8, 12 people that everyone feels gratified. I feel gratified. I will talk to you for an hour for the world in a way that I might not do otherwise. So now I'm going to feel really appreciative of you, Dylan, that we did this together. Doesn't mean we're going to have a business opportunity, but we're going to look out for each other now. So this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Now, a year later, she called me and said, Roy, I'm sorry I can't keep recording this podcast. I'm so busy with work. I don't have time to do the podcast. I go, good, then just stop. I can't stop. I said, you could. And she never really, this is where she fell off a cliff with me. I'm like, you've done like 20 of these episodes. Just tell us which ones you want to rerun. Nobody knows. Or just say this appeared last year and there's still some stuff that's relevant in it. Well, she never, I don't know. That's attorneys do that too. They're like, I wrote that once, I can never write it again. I'm like, dude, these questions are going to arise regularly. Don't presume somebody saw it a year ago. Rerun it, reshare it. You've got this, you've built up this footprint of content, reuse it, but we as marketers don't. That's where attorneys, I don't know, we don't have that kind of osmosis. I don't know what your clients are dealing with right now. You do, and you know what you wrote and did in the past. So put 2 and 2 together and let us know, and we can redistribute.
Yeah, a lot of creators say the same thing every day, and much less, once a week or once a month or once a year, right? So
right. And again, people don't, I don't know why they can't think about how they consume content in their daily lives. We'll watch the same episode of Friends or Mom like 89 times in a row, but for some reason you do a podcast like this and you're like, well, I aired that once. Well, you might want to see it again.
Oh, I love it. Well, Roy, this has been fascinating. I didn't expect to learn as much or have as much reinforced by talking to the CMO of a legal firm. I thought we were going to talk a lot of inside baseball, but what I really got from this show is a lot about creating a culture. That's like the first thing, like before you come in an organization and start throwing your elbows around and changing everything, you need to get trust and build a reputation where people trust you and will embrace the things that you want to roll out. And when you're in the professional service industry and you're dealing with, high intelligence, high motivation, high trust people, that's probably more important than others. So I think, a lot of people could learn from that. So Roy, with that, where would you like to send the audience to learn more about you or learn more about Vedder?
I'm on every form of social media. I have a link tree. It's linktree.com/Roy.Sexton, I think. And I'm even on Pinterest. You can find anything you want. I'm out there, but definitely LinkedIn. Look me up. I always appreciate the follow. Will always send me a message. I will reply. I'm always grateful that people bothered and wanted to find out more about me. And anytime you want to brainstorm, I'm around. So.
Love it. And for those of you who are watching the show for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening, an honest review is how we find a larger audience organically. And if there's a lawyer or maybe somebody in professional services or somebody just in marketing that would maybe learn from the conversation that I had with Roy today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will wish you all a great weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. Thanks again, Roy.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.